morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it may be for you watching right now. Welcome, my name is Lan. I'm currently doing my graduation project at the HKU Arts School of Arts in the Netherlands, studying games and interaction as a game artist. And recently I've been making Counter-Strike Global Offensive skins for my graduation project as well. I've learned a few things here and there and made some funny workflows for myself, and in particular this one that I will be explaining today, because I feel like it's very useful for the artists here that do not have 3D skills in external 3D softwares, but still want to apply this kind of 3D effect onto their skins in game. Now, if you don't have time to learn this entire 3D workflow, you can try what I'm doing instead. You only need 2D skills for this. So prerequisites for this process here is you're going to need a graphics software. Something like Photoshop is what I'm using right now, but you can also use GIMP. You can use Krita, Paint2Sci. Hell, you can even use Paint.net if you want it, as long as you can save a JPEG. And you will need VTFedit, which is a software specifically made for turning JPEGs into VTFs, which is the extension / format that Valve accepts to be used in their skins. So you can't just upload a JPEG into the game and it will work. It actually needs to be a VTF, and there's a separate tool for that I will link down in the description below. And lastly, of course, you will need Counter-Strike Global Offensive because it has a built-in workbench. Let's see here, if we open the workbench up, you can see this gives us a way to check skins out before they actually land in game. So what I will do very quickly is I will show an example of a P90 I have already made, what that looks like with the 3D effect on it, and how you can do that as well. So go here, and this is a P90 I have made. As you can tell here, those rocks I painted in myself with the 3D effect without using any external software. I'll very quickly show you guys what it looks like in Photoshop, then I'll go on to explain and show, demonstrate a bit of the process here, and then you can try it out for yourself. I will note that when I make this video, I am assuming that the person watching has a base understanding of how CSGO skins work, and maybe even has a foundation in making them. So if making skins is completely new for you, this is probably not the tutorial for you, and you should focus on doing the texturing first before you try any crazy 3D tricks. So let's continue here. So this is the type of effect we're going for, and I'll show you very quickly what this looks like in Photoshop. This is the normal map that I painted by hand specifically for that model. As you can see, a lot of intricacies going on, many weird bright colors. What the hell is even happening? So I'll go to our blank here. I have made a quick diffuse map that we can use. First off, when you make a normal, you go to Google, you type in normal sphere, because this is everything you need to paint your normal map. So what you can see here, stuff like this is a perfect representation or a render of what normals look like on a sphere, but this is in a 3D engine, and it shows you every color matching every single angle you need to know. For our sake and for our brain's sake, we'll keep this easier, and we will pick something that's more faceted and gives a more clear understanding of what angles we are working with specifically. So we'll go and copy this image, copy it over into our Photoshop file. As you can see, I've got the UVs overlaid here, but on a screen layer, so it only works when there's something underneath it. I'll toggle this off quickly and we can talk here. We'll make a normal map layer because that's what we will be working on. How these spheres work is, or actually maybe I should explain how normals work in the first place, just for those that don't know. When it comes to normals or modifying any kind of visual on a 3D model, there's two things you can do, or well, there's more than two, but two I'll be explaining right now. Is you can modify the topology straight up, which means that you'll be modifying the 3D in the 3D model, but this of course will have an effect on your mesh, whereas changing the normals will not. So every face, and because we're making a map, every pixel has a normal, which is the perpendicular direction of said pixel, and it flies directly outwards at a 90-degree angle. So that color is signified by this middle color here, this general blue. So what we need to do is to fill our normal map in the first place with this general blue color. Now what this will do is it will make sure that on different parts of the gun the normals stay true to how they were placed or made in the 3D model itself in the first place. For example, if I take a P90 here, that means that this blue at the top here, for example, we can assume that these normals are pointing directly up from these faces, but they're pointing directly towards us from, for example, this side. But because it's the same general blue, nothing will be distorted, it will just stay normal. So we paint everything in this general blue that we need, and then I'll overlap my UVs so we have a feel for where we're working. I will very quickly scale down this normal sphere and I will place it on my gun itself. So this is a very important step here, and this is actually the step where we don't paint anything yet. We need to now save this as a JPEG right now, because this will allow us to orient the sphere in the right direction, and you will see in a second what I mean by that. So we'll go normal sphere 1, save that as a JPEG. We'll open up our VTFedit, press import. I'm just going to quickly skim over this because I'm assuming if you're watching this video that you have already used VTFedit before. We'll have our normal on DXT1, alpha on DXT1 as well. We're not using an alpha channel, and we don't resize because for me I've already made my canvas 2048 by 2048 pixels, which is the maximum size Valve allows for you to use on their textures. So we'll go ahead, press OK, import this sphere right here, and now you can see here with the flags I've checked no bitmap, no level of detail, because we don't want to be generating those. We're making a simple texture. We'll go ahead, save this in a separate folder. Please keep your normal JPEGs and your normal VTFs separated, because they are basically the same thing, just named differently. If you place them in one folder, you're going to be lost. So again, we'll go normal sphere test 1, and we'll save it as a VTF. My god, speaking is difficult sometimes, isn't it? We'll go ahead and select the folder we need here, normal VTF map, normal sphere test 1. Just load that in quickly. Right, as you can see, our gun is now completely bare, but where we have added our normal sphere, there is a distortion. This is because said normal sphere of course already works because it's using the correct colors, but as you can see, the light is hitting from somewhere behind and above a little bit, and the top area here is completely shaded out, which means that we have oriented the sphere wrong. We're going to have to correct that. So it's going to be a 180-degree turn here, because as you can see, these top faces here are catching most light, so we want to orient those up. And this can be different, and especially in Counter-Strike, because we only see the guns in CS from a specific set of angles, which is in the inspect animation, and you can make your normal map fit that, because you don't need to take any other directions, light directions, and cameras into account. So we'll go back to our Photoshop, we'll make sure that our normal sphere here is rotated, and we can start overlaying our UVs again. And now the interesting part comes. So what I'll be doing this demonstration is I'll be creating a cube that extrudes out of the gun, and in this diffuse map I've already made a small face here. This is the face that we want to highlight, and we want to have extrude out of the gun. So how do we go about doing that? Basically what you want to do is you want to pick a color on this sphere that corresponds with the direction you want this area to be facing towards. So if we wanted the area to face as it usually would on this P90, would keep it the same general blue it is right now. For example, if we want it to face downwards, we can go ahead on this wheel and pick that greenish color, and the face would be slanted down. Now I want it to extrude outwards because it's easier for my demonstration, so I'll be adding some elements still. So I will go ahead and I will pick let's say this purple color here. It's slightly slanted, so this is the direction our face will be looking in right here. We can go ahead to demonstrate, and I will save this again and show it to you in game. We go back in game, and when I change this I will hold the window in a way where we can still see the result switch. However, as you can see, nothing really happens right now apart from this face being lighter when it's in an unshaded region. Right now that is because we made it face more upwards. But to fully give this extrusion its power, it needs context. As you can see, this middle sphere or this middle face here looks bumped because the entire sphere around it is also rendered out. So if you want to make this into a cube, we'll need to create the other faces as well. So now when we load back into our Photoshop, we can start shaping this. We'll take the UVs so we know where we are working, and we'll select the area outside of this specific shape. Now let's say I want to make a cube. I'll grab my brush right here, and I'll just very quickly establish the shape of the cube. Alright, now we have this basic shape laid down. As you can see, it doesn't really show you how the cube works yet, so we'll take this area here, and now we pick the correct corresponding colors. In this case, we want this face here to be looking slightly downwards and a bit to our left here, which means that this face would correspond with let's see, so the further out you go on this circle, the sharper the change is, because it's facing further away from you. You still have to think of this as a sphere, just a segmented one. So we don't want it to be that harsh. We'll take this color here. We start coloring in one face. And the other one we want maybe slightly harsher. It's going to be facing away from us, so it can have a darker contrast. Let's pick a nice yeah, let's pick a nice dark green for this. And it's maybe a very harsh switch. There's only one way to find out, and I'm going to keep emphasizing this, is to save it and test it in-game. It's the most important. The thing is, it's a nice workflow because it allows you to directly view your changes instead of having to render an entire 3D model, having to bake that stuff, re-import it, and then you can see a slight change. Whereas here, we basically go directly from Photoshop into the game. So I'll go ahead, save again, just to give our example normal sphere number 3. And now, when I go ahead and switch this up to test number 3, you'll see that in fact something has started to appear here, and it's a cube. And you can see that the shading on it changes because we redid the normals for it, and in this way you can start shaping your cubes or whatever shapes you're trying to 3D. You can start shaping them into existence. So I'll do one last step where I'll fade this lower edge into the rest of the gun, so it looks like it's really extruding out of it instead of being just glued on top. And what I'll also do, because like I said, we only view the gun here in a specific set of angles during this inspect. So what I can do is I can use normals that you usually wouldn't, because it would distort the gun. I can use them here because this is the only circumstances you see these under. So for right now, what I'll do is the area around the most lit face here, the top one, I'll make a bit darker, but not by texturing it darker, but by using normals, which means that it will permanently stay in a shaded position, because we'll make the faces point downwards and they'll never catch any light, resulting in a higher contrast area right here, and it will really make our cube here pop out of the skin. So we'll go for our last couple edits here. Yeah, let's go for it. So what I'm going to do in the first place is I will select everything around the cube and I'll start making this darker area. To get this darker area to form, we're going to need something that is perpetually pointed downwards, which is in this case the green color. We'll go at it with a soft brush so the transition isn't too harsh when we get to the rest of the skin. Maybe even make this a bit more reined in. This will create a dark field around our skin. What we can also do while we still have this selection going is have a little hard edge created. So let's say here is where it connects. We'll want like an extra hard edge to be just like that. This is where the cube connects into the gun, or should visually connect into the gun. And this extra edge is going to make that transition look a bit crisper. And make sure, of course, to point these edges in a direction you want to point them in. In this case, it's the most contrasting direction. So where this face here is pointed slightly down to the left, we'll take a darker blue color that's pointing slightly upwards and to the right to contrast that, and we'll do the same here but in opposite directions. So what I'm going to do is reintroduce this initial color here. We're going to chop off a bit of the cube here. Let's say I cut that piece off here and I made it look in the initial direction that that specific part was looking at on the original P90. So, which is directly outwards. We'll make this blue, and you'll be able to see that in fact we'll have like an extra bit kind of chopped off the side. And lastly, we still need to fade this cube into the normals of the skin to make it look like it's not just stuck on there, but it actually belongs. So go on a slightly low wetness, go ahead and we'll fan this entire area out here. This will allow for the transition to be soft. So I'm assuming the artist looking that you know a thing or two about edges, and of course a very hard edge signifies a very sharp angle or a change, whereas a smooth or even a lost edge, in this case a soft transition, makes up for rounder, more organic shapes, and is the opposite of these like hard contrasting areas that we have right here. So now that we've gone and shaded our skins or our cubes into the skin, we can see here that we have a somewhat finished result. So for now I'll remove this normal sphere, and this is what we have. I'll remove our thingies and we will test it out in game to see what this looks like. And now the time has come to reveal our latest change. So again, I'll do the same I did before. I'll show you the transition here. This is what we had, looked kind of glued on, very hard edged, and what we just changed here is we made the sphere kind of fade into the skin, and we gave it a darker area to sit around. And as you can see, it really looks as if that cube is standing in a place of its own. And this is how it works, guys. So you can apply this effect anywhere on the gun. I'm going to reiterate one last time. Make sure you have those normal spheres slapped onto your normal texture at all times. This will allow you to judge the angle correctly most of the time, so you don't have to do as much tweaking as you would if you would just freehand it. Now one last thing here, you can see that where we made the transition it looks kind of dark. This is of course because this general blue shows the original normal direction, and because the actual topology here is curving, you will need to use a different normal color to get the same effect as here, because simply the fundamental direction is different. That's why you would base your normal sphere in this area here to see what faces actually react to light in what way, and you would have to readjust your process here. That was it, guys. I hope you learned something from this. I hope you can take this and implement it in your own skin building process if you do in fact not have the capabilities of a solid 3D artist, and I hope it streamlines your process. I'll leave important links to for example VTFedit in the description down below, as well as my socials, so if any of you guys try this out at home, at the studio, wherever you're at, make sure to send me a message, because I'm actually curious to see what people come up with if they try this out. Thanks guys, and have a good day.